On a previous trip with my brother Tom, we had stopped in Pichachik at the home of a man who had helped us with a vehicle problem. We had never stopped in Pichachik before. I shared the gospel with him, his 13-year-old daughter, and his 11-year-old son. The three of them prayed to accept the Lord after sharing the gospel that followed an explanation of currently fulfilling Bible prophecy. I think the dad only agreed to because the kids seemed so enthusiastic about it, especially the young girl. That's my brother Tom on the left. On several subsequent trips, I had stopped to say hi and leave them candy and the quarterly published Daily Bread booklet in Spanish. On this trip, I found myself going through Pichachik, and I felt a strong impression to stop by their home. But I was in a hurry to get to El Misteño before it got too late to hold a meeting there. Plus, the chances I'd find them home was slim at that time of day. I almost talked myself out of it until I said, as I was just going by their gate, "Okay, Lord, I'll just do it." I found the girl, who was now 17, her mother and sister-in-law were all there. That's right, the little brother, who was now 15, had a pregnant wife. He was working, as was the dad, but I had the perfect opportunity to share with the three women. Of course, I started with currently fulfilling Bible prophecy so that they would have to respect the Bible and its gospel message. Then I shared the irresistible gospel. They all chose to pray with me to accept the Lord. Of course, it was a repeat experience for the daughter. Then it was on to the small town of El Misteño for a meeting, and then back to the town of Piloncillo, where I always stay at this particular house. Can you find the outhouse in this picture? Spotting these structures is a necessary skill if you spend extended time in these areas like I do. This is Nacho and Erlinda's house. They are very good friends and I enjoy their company. I also enjoy their food and humble accommodations as well. Erlinda was proud of her new stove. I broke up the ice going through the river the next morning. Over half the people in Piloncillo faithfully attend the meeting in the school building. Someone was trying to pull these logs with a motorcycle. I solved the problem for them. It was then on to Las Ranas for a meeting in the schoolhouse there with several dozen faithful believers. When you're all alone, you need to often improvise. I needed to pull this wire through this adobe wall. I couldn't do it, so I bent a branch of the tree and tied the wire to it, creating tension. Then it was easy to guide the wire through the hole from the inside while the tree branch pulled the wire from the outside. These barbed wire gates are everywhere. Of course, when you are alone, you need to stop, open the gate, drive through, close the gate, and then you can continue. Pam was such a help with that. In Creel, a town of 6,000, at about 8,000 feet altitude, the radio station is in these people's home. This is Luz and Adan and their children Rafael and Daniela. They study the Bible together and discuss it with their children, yet have never gone to a church for fear of getting bad doctrine. In Creel, there are several evangelical churches. Yes, they ask me a lot of questions when I'm there. Luz told me that when she was young, she found this book in a box of toys that was given to their family. That sparked her interest in spiritual things. As she got older and there was only the Catholic Church, she went there asking to learn more about the Lord. They put her in charge of teaching catechism classes for 2 years. It didn't satisfy her heart, she told me. When we came, she accepted the Lord and said that this was what she was looking for all her life. She had asked the Lord for a godly husband, a virtual impossible request in these villages. But the Lord gave her Adan, who knew nothing about the Lord, but embraced her love for the Lord and is an amazing Christian example to all who know him today. I was there on Sunday, so I told them I would go to church with them for the first time. We went. It was a good church. Not all are. They taught from the Bible, and the pastor showed a genuine love for people. They are now attending regularly. Then it was down from the 8,000-foot mountains to the 1,000-foot tropical canyons. I had been to the remote town of La Caña over a year earlier. I carefully shared currently fulfilling Bible prophecy, followed by the gospel. To my great surprise, no one responded to accept the Lord. I promised I would bring Pam the next trip. Pam and I were on our way that moment to La Caña when the accident happened last March. I finally got back to La Caña on this trip. There was no electricity in the school, but carefully messing around in here, I was able to get electricity into the building so that I could show them a video of Pam's life before I described what had happened that day. I then showed them Pam's translated prayer, where she asked the Lord to draw herself even closer to Him and to show us how to use this tragedy for His honor and glory, and finally to bless the thousands who had become aware of her through the Caring Bridge website and were praying for her. I pointed out that her selfless prayer came less than 48 hours before she passed away, as she laid there with no legs after 4 amputations. Then I shared the gospel, which she died in the process of bringing to this remote area. Then I asked if anyone had any questions. An older lady raised her hand. I was encouraged, since these people are very timid about asking any questions. I asked her what her question was. She said she had a dream and that she wanted me to interpret it. I told her I didn't get asked that question very often. I'm sure Daniel or Joseph, who both interpreted dreams, never said this, but I asked her to tell me the dream, and if anything rang a bell, I would tell her. Well, a whole lot about her dream rang a bell. She said that a lady came to her and told her to go up on a specific mountain. She went and found a woman making tortillas on a wood board instead of a metal griddle. That part rang no bell, but the rest did. She said that a man presented himself to her and said 3 things. The first was, "Don't be afraid." The second was, "I am coming soon." The third was, "Prepare yourself." Not understanding, she sent someone down the mountain to her home to bring her all the tortilla dough she had so that she would be prepared. I explained that I had actually heard that same dream from others with slightly different circumstances each time, but that the 3 statements, "Don't fear, I am coming soon," and be prepared were always the same. You know how I then interpreted her dream, just as you would, or anyone who knows the Bible. I then asked who wanted to start their personal relationship with Jesus. She was the first to raise her hand. Then several young ladies raised their hand, followed by several others among the 35 adults present. This was after I had taken the children outside and given them candy. As I remember, I prayed with about 5 people to accept the Lord in the presence of the entire group. I then explained the difference between the Old and New Testaments and encouraged them to start reading about the life of Christ in the New Testament. Since I was out of clothes and shoes to distribute, I gave each mother or father that was present 100 pesos, which is about $5. I always explain that what I gift them is only because of the love that God has given me for them. I then dismissed them, but asked that the 5 who had accepted the Lord stay behind so that I could take their picture. I then asked that if any others had prayed silently with us during the prayer, would they please stay as well? To my overwhelming surprise, this is the picture I took of all who had prayed to start a personal relationship with Jesus. There were 26 people, including the most influential people in the small town. I then tried to warn them that the devil would be trying to discourage them by telling them that nothing had really happened when they prayed. And I also told them that if they sinned, the devil would be right there to condemn them and tell them, see, nothing really happened. You're not any different than you were before. But I told them how the Lord would also be trying to encourage them at those moments and telling them that if they just ask for forgiveness, He's ever ready to forgive them. Encourage them to stand up and go forward with the Lord. Then it was on to Los Llanitos, La Colima, and San Ignacio, with more stories too long to include here. Finally, I went to the cartel hub town of Batopilas. I wasn't there 3 minutes before a cartel red Suburban and pickup truck with cartel soldiers in the back pulled up beside my truck. People had warned me that the cartels might like my new truck and take it away from me, since that's what they do whenever they like a vehicle. Well, they began to look the truck over, but when they recognized me, they smiled, waved, and drove off. They just didn't recognize this new vehicle in town. Their presence is constant in Batopilas. Thank the Lord, we now have a pastor in Batopilas. He is the third from the right in this picture. He also speaks Tarahumara, which there are many of in this area. Here are some who come regularly to the meeting. I expect some real growth now in this church, the Lord willing. I drove over 4,000 miles on this trip.